I know there's lots of people still logging in, but the beauty of Zoom is that we can actually start a meeting on time. So that's one of the benefits of doing it this way. Otherwise, you'd be watching us in the library, walking around aimlessly, having people sit down around us. And so we can just start. And welcome. My name's John Fiorito. For the people who don't know me, I'm the Director of Guidance here at the high school. And it's wonderful to see so many faces. No offense to parents, but especially students. And we are excited to host this evening and talk about post-secondary planning. So we're going to talk about a bunch of things tonight. Our goal is to really do this about an hour. And that doesn't mean we can cover everything by any stretch in an hour. So please understand that we are more than welcome to, more than open to hearing from you in many different forums. So that's emails you can send out to us. If you want to just pick up the phone and call us in guidance, we have some wonderful people who work in the guidance office who will get you in touch with the people you need to get in touch with. And tonight, before I move on and talk about the agenda, I'd love to introduce the staff. And we're so used to the Zoom thing now, many of us. So everybody's scattered about in this Brady Bunch thing on steroids here. So they are scattered about the screens. You know most of them, but Jessica Estrella, who I see in my bottom left, works in the guidance office, and she came aboard last year. She has done a ton of amazing things in the guidance office in her year plus, but she is mostly for the seniors on this call. Not only is she a go-to person if you have any questions, and sorry, Jess, about Power School and Family ID and all that stuff, she can answer your questions about scholarships when we get into the nitty-gritty of that. We're not going to talk too much about scholarships tonight. We don't want to jump too far ahead. We want to get into schools first, and then we'll talk about helping pay and see what the scholarship program is going to be like. But for the seniors who are going through this for the first time and the families going through this for the first time, Jessica Estrella will help you through this thing you've read about for all the years, our scholarship program, which is an amazing program. And Cindy Grant, and Cindy, if you can wave, I don't see you, but I know you were here. But Cindy Grant has been with us, how many years now, Cindy? Not to put you on the spot. Jess, how many years you think now for Cindy?
6.5.
6.5.
Yeah.
That's a weird number. 6.5. But it feels like Cindy has been here for so long because she really has this college thing down pat. And it doesn't mean that we don't run into issues along the way. And we're learning as we go. But Cindy Grant is the person who is going to help facilitate the actual applications for your kids. Not the applying, you're going to apply on your own, but she is sending everything that will help support your kids' applications. So for the parents on here, if you have any questions on how your kids' teacher recommendations are going to go, it's going to go through Naviance, and we're going to talk about that tonight through Cindy Grant. How does the transcript get there, seniors? How do your grades? How does your grade point average? All that stuff. How does that show up for colleges? That Cindy sends all that stuff along, and she does an amazing job. And truly, if you have a question, pick up the phone. It's a lot easier sometimes than just emailing and just hearing a voice answer the questions, and it might just be a little easier. So Cindy, who now is right next to me on the screen, she will completely walk you through it. She's our go-to person in the guidance office. And we have three wonderful counselors. Erica Mulvey, who many of you know through her different iterations on the islands in different schools, Oak Bluffs and Tisbury, comes to us with a wealth of experience in doing this job in Colorado. And this is her third year, Erica. This is her third year. And she is wonderful at what she does. And she obviously has a third of you on this call. And if you have Erica as a guidance counselor, you can email her, and we're going to talk about how you set up individual appointments for all the counselors as this meeting goes on. Michelle Lynch.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Michelle. 4 years?
Fourth school year, yeah.
Fourth school year here, comes with lots of experience from the Boston area, grew up on the islands, and we did this work in Boston, so has a lot of experience in different schools in the Boston area, and now is her 4th year with us here at the 4 years in at the high school. Again, has a third of you on this call. Please, you can email her and set up individual appointments with her. And again, we'll talk about those in a second. And then Sean Mulvey, not a rookie anymore with us, and not a rookie at all at doing this, because he was with Erica, obviously. You guys can put two together, that for the people who don't know, but Erica and Sean were doing guidance work in Colorado. Sean, many of you know, as the assistant principal for many years at the Tisbury School, and we were so lucky to get him last year. And again, we'll talk about how you get in touch with your individual counselors through this. So this is my 2nd year as the director of guidance. If you are really bored, you can watch this presentation live, because we videotaped it this time last year. And if you do that, please let us know, because I know you're not locked down anymore. So I don't know why you'd exactly watch that all hour and a half of that video, but the video does have a lot of information and hopefully helpful information. But truly what we're going to do tonight is not much different than last year's presentation, because a lot of the stuff has not changed. And let's talk about the elephants in the room right off the bat. So everybody is clearly worried about how this has impacted families, the COVID situation that impacted us in the 2nd semester of last year and now is impacting seniors this year, clearly with our remote learning. I will say, my wife has told me if I ever write unprecedented in an email again, she will divorce me. So I kind of Googled all of the COVID no-nos: unprecedented, new normal, uncertain times, trying times, essential. So we are trying to avoid all of those terms tonight, because the beauty of this process, and this is going to sound a little crazy, is this process is already fills families and kids with anxiety already, and that has nothing to do with COVID. Truly, almost everything we talk about tonight is going to have nothing to do with COVID. And really, on some level, that should be refreshing for everybody. Let's just go through this process like COVID doesn't exist, because truly, that's the way colleges are handling this. Every seminar that we've been a part of, and we've been on many, the guidance staff, every interaction I've had personally and the other counselors have had with admissions reps, they are handling this situation like COVID doesn't exist, because you still have to deal with deadlines. You still have to apply the same way. Your transcript and your grade point average and the classes you take as a senior, all the things that we historically talk about during this process still exists in the COVID times. So we don't have to say unprecedented, because really that has nothing to do with this process. Now, I'm not naive. We're going to talk about SATs, and I understand how SATs have been impacted. I truly do. And I understand that you can't do school visits the same way you did school visits before COVID times. But truly, if you want to apply to a 4-year college, the senior checklist that we go through every year and is available on our websites is the same senior checklist that we're going to go through tonight. So we're just going to get that out there and just be honest about it, and try, hopefully that, believe it or not, will lessen some anxiety about this. But truly, we are going to get through this together. That's the only promise that I can make, is through this process, that I feel like we can do this process the same way we have in past years. And I think we do a pretty good job of this. And I think our kids are well prepared to apply to a 4-year college. And that's what tonight's meeting is about, is how do you apply to a 4-year college this fall and this winter. So there's already enough stress in this process. We're going to embrace that stress, and COVID is really not going to enter into the discussion. Just a couple ground rules for tonight. I did not disable the chat feature. I don't know what I did, but I was going to say if there was a chat feature on there and I don't see it, at the bottom of this. I was going to ask you to not use the chat feature right away, because if anything, in doing this long enough now since the spring, the chat feature becomes very distracting to me as a presenter. And it's not that I don't want to hear your questions. There will be plenty of time for questions during this process. So we are going to do old school show of hands throughout this. And between all the counselors and Jess and Cindy, we are going to be able to answer your questions along the way. So please, if you have a question, I know it's awkward raising your hand in this little screen, but that's the way we're going to do it. And I swear it was not a conspiracy to not have a chat going. We were going to limit it anyway. I ask you to mute yourself. Clearly, we've all had fun Zoom meetings where we've heard really wonderful things that people don't want to hear. So if you're eating dinner, and I don't know who picked this time, 6:30. So I don't know if you've eaten dinner, you're preparing dinner, you're sitting back with a drink right now, anybody. Just like we prefer to have the mute on, and we're going to try to help you out if you forget. And I will promise I will try to give you a second if you ask a question to not just immediately jump in and say you're muted, because it drives me up a wall. And I promise I will give you some time to unmute yourself. But if you start talking and it's like 15 seconds in, I'm not playing a joke on you. I will eventually ask you to unmute yourself, but I will give you some time. So just the basic ground rules for that. This is the biggest thing regardless of Zoom. Just know that this is a very personal process. There is no one size fits all answer to all of the questions in planning for post-secondary education. Everybody, if you're going to an art school and you're going to ask about art portfolios, we can help you with that, but I'm not trying to be offensive. For 99% of the other people on the Zoom call, they may not really want to hear about your art questions. And I mean that with all due respect. So we will answer all those questions as much as possible, but please, that would be the time to send us an individual email, and you can do it during this time. So feel free. I will not be offended if you're typing an email during this and say, hey, can you help me with an art portfolio? Or my kid wants to play Division III sports somewhere. I'd be happy to help you, and so would the other staff here. But just kind of think about this as this is a general meeting to try to get everybody on the same page. And a lot of this is information for everybody, but there's a lot of individual stuff that goes on with this process. And there will be other forums to ask a lot of those questions. So the agenda for tonight is we're going to go through our senior checklist. Erica is going to review it at the end as well. And we are going to touch on Naviance. We're going to touch on the Common App. We're going to touch on deadlines, which is probably the biggest. We're going to talk briefly about letters of recommendation, personal essays, financial aid, and SATs. So before I do my little presentation and kick it over to Cindy, and everybody's going to have a little piece. So you're not just going to hear me drone on, although it might feel that way already. I would say that the one thing I can stress, and the positive thing that COVID brought us in the spring, if anything, was that kids check their email a lot more than they ever have. And so usually we start these senior meetings saying for seniors and for parents of seniors, please, you have to have a dedicated email to this college process, because colleges are going to be communicating with the seniors via email. Everything that you do will be through email. And I don't know who is a part of the high school view, and I know there's some people on this call who are a part of the high school view, and my wife and Ms. Schubert do that. And she came home before this meeting and she said, kids are already overwhelmed with their email. And so I'm not going to ask for a show of hands from the kids about how overwhelming school email is during remote education. But please understand that you have to develop a system to have an email address that you check on a regular basis, because buried, if you use your school email, buried in all the Google Classroom notifications, buried in all the emails you get from Jessica Estrella and the school, with what the schedule is and you name the email that we send out. I know kids are literally getting hundreds of emails a week. Now, for a lot of adults on that call, you're used to that. On this call, you're used to getting that. I get hundreds of emails a week. But it can be overwhelming for me. I can only imagine what it's like for students. But please know, and here's a suggestion that I'm going to throw out there. If you haven't done so already, you might want to create a new Gmail that's just for colleges through this process, that you use for just colleges, that you don't use for Google Classroom and share with your teachers in the school, that you don't use to shop online, that you don't use to sign up for Netflix on or whatever, that you just use for the college process, and you check it every day when you start going through the actual applying to schools. Because College Board, Common App, a Naviance, you name it, everybody's going to be emailing you, the students, through and they're going to be using your email. So it's my one suggestion through this whole thing, and I hope it makes sense why we would use that as an important jumping off point to this whole discussion. So before we get to Naviance, which will be the first thing, let me just talk about SATs. So for a show of hands, who has a registration so far coming up, whether it's September 23rd, October 3rd, or November 7th, to take the SATs? Can you just raise your hand? Who's planning on taking an SAT? Thank you. I'm not going to ask you for a show of hands who has had an SAT canceled, because that would probably be everybody. I appreciate that this has been brutal. I can only imagine what it's like. We have done our best to work with the Board of Health. We think we have a plan in place for October 3rd to host the SAT. We canceled the September 26th SAT after consulting the Board of Health. And I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty if you have individual, I feel like we have reached out to everybody personally with a phone call who had their SAT canceled on September 26th. I thought it would be fair to not send an email, to call everybody personally. So all the guidance counselors call people on their caseload. We tried to get in touch with everybody last week. Please sign up for October 3rd before the off-island people sign up for October 3rd. We are working with the Board of Health to limit the number of seats available. So September 26th had 125 seats. They were filled with almost all, not almost all, a huge majority of those kids were off-island kids. 7 states, multiple cities and towns in the state of Massachusetts. The Board of Health was not going to approve where everybody was coming from. There is nothing we can do. We cannot legally keep kids from off-island from signing up. If we are a test site, we're a test site to everybody. We applied, like a lot of schools across the country, to College Board to try to limit it. And they said, no, if you're going to be a test site, you have to be a test site for everybody. So we did not let the off-island people know we were canceling September 26th until just recently. That was for our local people who had a 26th registration, the September 26th test registration, to go in immediately to sign up for October 3rd. We are limiting it to 60 seats. If you do not get in for some reason, please email me and I will try to open up another seat. I cannot guarantee it. So please, you have to do it. There are still seats available. There are still seats available for November 7th as well. We are not as worried about off-island kids as much for those 2 dates, because a lot of people are offering them off-islands. September 23rd, for the kids who registered with me by the beginning of last week, we are doing a pre-registration tomorrow, and we are going to host it on Wednesday and try to pull it off on Wednesday. But you will have already had to register with me. So that's SATs. Here's the disclaimer, and I get it. You've been told your whole life that SATs are important. Colleges are bending over backwards to say that SATs are not important. I am not naive. I understand when they say they're optional, that if you have a good score, of course you should send that good score. But really, even private schools that I've talked to are counseling their kids to be prepared to not have an SAT that they have available, that because so many things have been canceled, that colleges will completely understand that. But we are still trying our best to make sure you have as many chances to take the SAT if you choose to do that for the schools in question. That is my SAT. Does anybody have a question about SAT right now? And people might have to help me with this. You can unmute yourself. I'm trying to scan through if anybody's got a hand up.
I thought Maria Clara had a hand raised. Maybe she doesn't have a question anymore. Maybe you answered it.
Maria Clara, are you good? We will take that as good. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump right into Naviance. So there's nothing more exciting than talking about Naviance, right? In September, but we have talked about Naviance since freshman year with your kids. I went in freshman year and tried to talk to the students about Naviance. Sophomore year, we went in and we touched on Naviance, but Naviance is for real now. So Cindy does everything with our Naviance. The counselors help with Naviance, but what we do with Naviance is that is how we share everything with colleges. So Cindy, do you want to give a brief overview of what how you use Naviance?
Okay, so Naviance we use to send your college applications. We send, not actually your application, but we send your transcript, your teacher recs, our school profile through Naviance. Now, first, I just want to back up and say, if you can't log into Naviance as a student or parent, please call me. It's easier on the phone. I will walk you through it and figure out why you can't log in. After that, I will help you get to the process. So there's a couple steps we take. First, we're going to go to colleges that you're thinking about. And once you come up with your list that you're thinking about and the ones you want to apply to, you're going to move those to colleges I'm applying to. When you move the applications over, what we need to know that's so important is how are you applying to that college? You will all hear certainly very soon from Sean about the Common App. So there's a couple ways you can apply. You can apply through the Common Application, or you can apply directly to the Institute. There's a new feature this year, and you might see it right after a college where there's a little I and it's information. There's other ways to apply now to colleges. It's through Parchment, it's through the Coalition. It doesn't matter for us. You have to just put down that you're applying directly to the institution, because that's how I can send everything electronically. There's very few colleges now that are what called snail mail, and they'll have a little postal sign next to them, like Cape Cod Community College, and then we would mail everything to them. But when you see the CA after Boston College, it means they accept the Common App, and you may apply directly through the Common App. If it's just a blank screen as you go down to Salem State, that just means it's going to go electronically. So I need you to make sure you let us know how you are going to apply, because if I don't know, it could hold up your information getting to that college. Then once you do apply, you're going to click Submitted. And that way I know I get emails every day from Naviance that you've submitted your application and you're waiting for me to send your transcript and your school and teacher recs, council recs, okay? The other thing is that you can also request a transcript, and that will come to me as well. So I get emails every day, just like you guys do, a lot of different places. I get them from Naviance every day for every student who applies, telling me what I need to do for that student. If I have a question, I will email you, and I know you're inundated, but I will put on the top important college application. So you know, try to get back to me. It doesn't have to be that minute, but within the next day, so I can get your information out to them. And that's basically how we work. Right now, we have 83 colleges that have signed up for virtual college visits, and it's on your home page under What's New. You can click onto that, and then you go up to the right-hand side of your screen and register. They will send you a link 15 minutes before the actual visit for you to get on the virtual visit. It's wonderful this year. We've never had that many college visits, but because they are virtual and colleges don't have to come to the Vineyard, we've really opened up a lot of spaces. And usually they're at lunchtime and then right after school is when we're doing the visits. Right now we're going through the middle of November, and if I see there's a need, we'll open up more time slots for colleges. So that's where we are right now with colleges and applying to colleges and the college visits. Okay, Mr. Fiorito?
Yes.
Did I forget anything?
No, I mean, so anybody have any questions about that, just in general? Yes, Ebony?
How long are the virtual tours?
They're usually 45 minutes. That's the time frame we put in there, was 45 minutes, and that's what most colleges like to use. You can also go through the actual college and set up your own virtual tour privately. Go on their website and sign up for something if you choose to do that instead of, or if you miss the actual visit with us.
Can I just point out about the matching accounts here? So can you guys see my screen where it says I'm not able to apply to a Common App school because I'm not matched? So I can show them this now. So we're going to talk through this with you guys at your senior meetings, but if you wanted to, if you already had a Common App account, and Sean's going to talk about that in a minute, but if you cannot do anything until you can match your Common App to your Naviance account. And we'll walk through how to do that. But this is the button where you find it. Sometimes I get asked, well, how do I match my account? It's under colleges I'm applying to, match account. Just wanted to show them where that was.
And that's a good point, Ms. Mulvey, is that you have to be able to match your accounts in order for me to send your information to that college. So in other words, there's two venues here. There's the Common Application and there's Naviance, and they have to merge so that we're allowed to send your information from Common App to Naviance. So thank you for sharing that.
So Sean, you want to talk about Common Apps since we're sort of there?
I'll take that segue. The great thing about the Common App is that by the time you start filling this thing out, it probably means you've done some pretty good work figuring out what you want to do and where you want to go. And the Common App, you know, it gets a lot of press, but it's not a difficult thing to do. And we'll show you in some of the tabs on the screens that Erica will scroll through. I have my own account here, like a practice account. This is one of those things that you can do when you have 10 minutes. You know, you can plug in one of the activities, or if you want to sit down and crank out 2-3 hours, you know, it's not the most daunting task, but the Common App is exactly what it sounds like. It's a common application that about 900 different colleges use. You fill out this thing once, and then you can send it to a variety of different schools, any of those 900 we were discussing. So Erica, will you go to College Search just so we can show it how easy it is to pop one in? That fourth tab over, yeah. So you can type in anything. It's pretty intuitive. You can start with Boston, and you're going to see all the Boston schools. You can click one of those. And it was that easy. All of a sudden, if we click that blue button, Northeastern's in your list. And your list is kept on the dashboard. That's that first tab on the left. So you can actually see, we click on the dashboard one. This one it allows you to see your list of schools, and it gives you a little bit of information, like under BC there, that one at the top, that January 1st, that's your application deadline that you designate. You know, that's the regular decision for them. Northeastern, we just added it, so I haven't figured out, you know, when that's going to be. But it shows me that purple pen shows my application in progress. And you can click to show more details. It just gives you more of what's on the rest of the pages. Lets you know how far you've gone. Do they require an essay or not? But let's head over to the next tab over there. So your colleges, these are the ones that I put in there. Plus I think we just added one just now. So these are my colleges that I've searched for through the College Search and added into that link. And if you click on, let's do any one of those, pick one. UMass Amherst. We're doing it, UMass Amherst tonight. The first part of this is going to give you just basic information about the school. You can scroll down, you see the application deadlines there for the fall on the right there, first year. Their early action deadline is in there for November 5th, and then regular decisions January 15th. How much is it going to cost, for your application fee? Are they going to ask for or require a teacher recommendation? This first page is pretty decent as far as their information they provide for you about that school. So this isn't about every school you're applying to, it's just UMass Amherst. Yep, there's your application. Your essays are required. Are there additional questions? We'll get to that part in a different link that's coming up. And then it doesn't have an additional writing supplement, so that's good. All right, scroll up. Now in here, we were just talking about matching. Matching Naviance and Common App. So this is the way we're going to do it. So if you, go back to my colleges and just pick one again. If you do this process just once, recommenders and FERPA, if you do it for one college, it's good for all of the colleges you have listed in Common App. What you're doing here for the FERPA release and authorization, it's asking, hey, can I give permission for Martha's Vineyard Regional High School to send my transcript out to all these colleges? And if you click the view details under the FERPA release, it'll show the questions they're going to ask. So go all the way to the top, view details, yep. So it's going to ask you questions, and basically they're saying, hey, can we send your recommendations? Can we send your transcripts? Do you trust us to do that? But you're also waiving your right to see those recommendations because they really want to have an authentic, honest recommendation. The common thing that everybody does throughout the nation is you waive your rights to these things so that we can send them on. But you have to do this first. So you click through, you sign it at the end. And when you do that, you've done your FERPA recommendation form, and you can go back into your Naviance account and click that scary red bar that said you're not matched. You can click it, and then you will be. So that's one thing, you can do that as soon as you start your account. That's one thing you could do right away because it's going to apply to all your colleges. While we're still here,
Hang on, we point out about how they match. So tell them about the email address that they use for Common App.
Yes, the one thing you have to do to make sure they sync together is the same email address that you put into your Common App has to be the same one that you're using for your Naviance account. So for me, it's my smlvmbyps, and if you're not sure, you can find it up there, but that's got to be the same one you're using for Naviance so that you can link that way. Thank you, Ms. Mulvey.
Yep.
Underneath UMass Amherst, a couple of things you'll see that are helpful is your questions. These are Amherst questions. This isn't like your regular essay that you might have that you're going to send to all your Common App schools. This is just stuff they want to know about you. What's your major going to be? When are you going to start? Are you going to ask for financial aid? Are you Cape Verdean? You'll see there's a variety of things. If you click a different school, they're totally different questions. But underneath that, I like this part, the review and submit button. Sorry, on the tabs on the left. The review and submit. This is going to tell me I have a lot of blue in there. That means I haven't gone very far. Like I gotta finish all this stuff before I can even submit. So like I said, Common App is not a stressful thing. They won't let you submit until you're finished. So you click on this thing, you can't even try to submit it until you get everything done. So you want to see what you got to get done? We're going to go on that middle tab at the top for Common App. This is all the stuff that you would think that a college is going to ask about you. Your profile is just, your name, when were you born, address, contact details, how can they get a hold of you, things like that. These are those things I said you could do when you got 10, 15 minutes. Your family, they are going to ask about your family. You got kids that are going to, or do you have brothers or sisters that are going to attend college at the same time? Who do you live with? Things like that. Your education, this will take a little bit more time because there's tabs in here where you have to find our high school. You got to put in Martha's Vineyard Regional High School. And then answer a couple questions about us. When you're going to graduate. And then we will help you with a lot of these pages. Like if you click on grades, this might be stuff you don't know. how many kids are in your class, what's your rank, what's decile mean. We're going to do this with you when you have your senior meeting. So this is stuff you don't have to sweat early on. We'll help you with this stuff under that education tab.
So
It's fun. Take a look at it, but don't worry about filling it in immediately.
And
Go
Sean,
ahead.
sorry to interrupt. And Erica, where you were on that, that is the one thing that is hard to remember. So everybody's going to be doing this at a different time. This gets into the nitty gritty of our individual, how we rank, how we do GPA, what's our scale and all that stuff. So like Sean said, everybody when they have, so at the junior meeting, which were mostly Zooms for most families, we went over your transcript for the first time and just talked about your grades and gave you an idea. Your official rank is compiled, it's now an official rank. And the way we do this for schools, you can see the options. People across the country do this all differently. This is the age-old debate. If you read the New York Times every Sunday, they probably have a dueling op-ed on how schools should rank or should they rank at all. We chose several years ago, after many committee meetings and many with parent input, kid input, to do a decile rank. So we don't do exact rank for anybody. So you can see it says the graduating class size. And if you go down a little bit, Erica, we do a decile rank, which just means we do it every 10%. We do our scale, which is on a 6-point scale. And then we put your GPA in. Just so you know, for that GPA, on the Common App form that we fill out for colleges as part of our profile, we put what the highest rank in the class is. So they have a gauge of where you stand. So if you're in the top 10% and your rank's 5.94 and they go to our profile and see that the top rank is 5.96, they clearly have an idea where you fall in the top 10%, and then they can do the math from there. And that's all college. We consulted with colleges. This has worked for the top schools, the state schools, you name it, that they are good with this. And they understand this is what they do for a living. So they understand how schools rank and compile this information. But like Sean said, when you have your meeting, when you leave, you should either have an unofficial, if you're doing it in person, you can get an unofficial transcript. That transcript means nothing if you have it in your hands because nobody's going to accept it from you. It has to be sent by Cindy directly to the schools. But when you're filling this out, this is the most emails that I probably get from kids when they're filling out the Common App. First of all, how do you spell your last name? Because you have to put my name in, or your counselor's name, and my email address and my phone number, whoever your counselor is. That's all in that individual stuff that they ask you to fill out. But they want to know how many kids are in our class, what is your decile rank, and what is your GPA. You have to put that in for the schools. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's great. So that was on the grades tab. Yep. And then on the left, two other tabs I want to show you. To the left there is your activities. This is something, and parents, you can join right in on this one. This is, you get 10 spots to talk about what amazing things you've done other than class throughout high school. So, my example here is I was part of the art club. I did it for 3 years. And I spent, 5 hours a week, 5 hours a week for every week of the year, I think I said. So this is something you can do, whenever you have a few minutes, but parents, I bring you in on this because sometimes, students, you're far too modest. You're going to say, oh, that thing I did wasn't that important. Well, you can put it in a rank order, put your most coolest one at top. If you did dance for 4 years in a row, thanks, Erica. If you do dance 4 years in a row and that's your most important thing, put it at the top, and if you did volunteer work, but not that often, or it wasn't that meaningful to you, maybe that's your 10th one. Thanks. But, so that's the activity area. And then the last one, Erica, let's go to the essay at the bottom.
Just Sean, I'm sorry. On the activities, we get a lot of questions about hours. It's an awkward question for kids to fill that out. So when they're asking for how many weeks and total hours and things, how many hours a week, it's hard to quantify some things because it's an average. You don't have to overthink this too much. They understand if you do art club and you put, the school year, which we usually say, we have 180 days, you can kind of do the math and figure that out. Don't overthink this too much. Do the best you can. They're not going to hold you. They're not going to audit you. This isn't the IRS that you're applying to. So you don't have to worry about that. I will say if you play a sport, JV or varsity, I like, and I think the other counselors do this too, just to make it simple, we like to average 20 hours a week, just because that is a fair rundown of practices and when you travel for games and things like that. So if you were on the golf team for the last 3 years and you did golf 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, you did golf for 3 months, that's 12 weeks in school, and you did it for 20 hours a week. And that's every sport. We don't have to get, you think you did it 22 hours, or you think you only did it 14 hours, just round it off. And that seems like a simple thing that's worked through the years for our kids.
Good. All right, last tab on this tab is the writing section. This is the essay. Some of you were fortunate enough, don't get ahead of myself. This top part of the personal essay, it's going to mine through and say, okay, for all the colleges that I'm applying to, who requires it? Well, lucky me, all of them require it. So I better write a great essay. So down below, this is the prompts that we've been giving you since last when we gave your junior interview information. Sent it a couple times in the summer. Some of you were lucky enough to work on it with your teacher in the spring. Some of you either got a rough draft or you might have a fairly polished one. These are the 6 or 7 prompts or questions that Common App has used for the last couple of years. They didn't change this year. These are the same as before. You can tell if you've read through these or if you're reading through them now, they want to find out about you. Your colleges are meeting you for the first time electronically, and so they're going to read this 650-word essay. That's the max, which is, it's not a lot. It's like 2 pages. And they want to find out something about you. They also want to know if you can write well. So take your time, do a couple drafts, have people you trust and know read through these and double check them for you. And the strategy here, thanks. The strategy here is that my people say, do it in a Word document, do it somewhere else first, and then copy and paste and drop it in here when it's ready to go. So this is the thing that kind of catches people, and it feels like it's that one last thing to do. But it's, like we said, it's important, but it's 650 words. Hopefully you've been working on this.
I would just jump in and add, be careful when you're writing your essay about the word limit. Oftentimes people tackle a topic that's broad and then they end up with this really long essay and they can't figure out how to narrow it down. So as you're doing a brainstorm, picking your topic or your theme, make sure you get specific enough or have that kind of outline ahead of time so you know exactly where you're going, because it is hard for most people to get it down to the 650 words.
You don't have to do it all at once. You can do this over time.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
Yeah, there should be, I think for most people, there should be, 5, 6 drafts, maybe less, but when I work with students, they're doing a lot of drafts on this essay.
Mm-hmm.
And your teachers will help you with this. And one of the things about bringing kids into the building and office hours, you might want to talk to your current teacher, last year's English teacher, your freshman year English teacher, and shoot them an email. And they would, our English teachers have been amazing through the years about helping. So that could be something you come in during the lunch hour and a half, and you take a half an hour and sit down with your teacher in person, or you can clearly share Google Docs with the teachers. But please, just out of respect, just email them and let them know, hey, I might need some help with this, and all the things that were just mentioned about editing and topics and getting all that stuff. Our English teachers are more than welcome to, are more than available to help out.
Mm-hmm. Erica's hovering over the writing area because you'll see some colleges have additional essays, and they're usually shorter than this main one. But this one is actually about COVID. John mentioned early on that, for the most part, it's different. It's the same as always, but they are giving you an opportunity here. I think they give you 250 words to talk about what happened for you. As part of our school profile that we send to every college, we'll have how we as a school handled it, how we graded things, how long we were out of school, things like that. You don't have to repeat that, but they're asking you at the top there, if you feel like you want to add something that your situation was unique, they're giving everybody an opportunity to do this now. So that's the spot down below. Is it? Oh, it's longer. It's more.
I just add too about the, doing the Common App a little bit at a time. Every time you finish a section, you'll see a green check over here. So you can log in and out a million times. And as Sean said, you can't submit until it's completely done. So this is a great way if you have parents that are anxious to help. This is a way that they could maybe help, right? With the profile or the family. Students should really fill in their education and activities, but this is something that you can log in and work on a little bit at a time. So please don't wait till the last minute. You can be, if you have a free 10 or 15 minutes, you can maybe get another section done and get another green check.
Great.
Green checks are good.
Checks are very
Now,
good.
I'm not ignoring the 5th tab at the top that talks about financial aid, because we'll check for questions, but Michelle is going to speak on that part next. So are there questions? It'll be tough to scroll through, but raise a hand if you got a question about Common App, just knowing that this is something we walk you through during our senior meetings. Looks like Anya, you want to unmute yourself and ask?
Just a quick question. Would there be a benefit to applying directly through a school other than Common App if they accept it, or is it just fine to go with Common App all the way?
Colleges are so used, good question. Colleges are so used to Common App that they are happy to receive it through Common App.
Thank you.
It probably makes it easier for them.
Okay, thanks.
Looks like it. So Michelle, you're up.
Perfect.
All right, so I'm going to start by talking about the ways that you can apply to college, and it is connected also to financial aid, so I'll show that connection in a minute. But you can apply to college in 4 ways. So there is regular decision. So that's when a college has a firm deadline. That's usually maybe January 1st, January 15, February 1. February 15, I would say those are the 4 most common regular decision deadlines. There's also rolling admissions. So some schools have rolling admissions, and it might open, at the beginning of November, and they're making a commitment to you that after they receive all of the parts that they need of your application, they are going to have a turnaround time of maybe like 3 to 4 business weeks. So that's rolling admission. There's early action. So as you can see here, Bridgewater State University does have an early action. That's November 15. And then some schools have early decision. So it looks like that school does not. Stonehill, does Stonehill? Yes. So Stonehill has an early action, which is November 1. They have an early decision, which is December 1. They have a regular decision. I don't know what it said, but they also have an early. So they have a regular decision, and they have an early decision too. So you guys may all have this down pat, but I'm gonna go over it just in case you need a reminder. So early action is when you are applying to the school early. So the benefit of doing that is that you will find out early that you got accepted to some schools. So often, some students like to apply early action if they are organized students, if they're kind of ready to go by November 1st or November 15, they'll choose to apply early action to some of their schools, because by February, they'll know that they got in, maybe even before February, they'll know that they got into some schools, and that can be like a huge stress relief for students. So then, and not every school has early action. So, some schools do and some schools don't. You can find that information out through Naviance, and you can also find that information by going to the school's website and under admissions. So it's really important to mentally figure out, either, on your own, or ask your counselor for help, or with a parent, figure out what you are applying to for each school. So for University of Vermont, you may do early action. For another school, they might not have early action. So in that case, you pick regular decision, or you pick rolling. Early decision is something that you really want to have a conversation with as a family. Early decision is a binding agreement. So if you apply early decision, so by December 1 for Stonehill, or early decision to February 15, you are telling the college that if you accept me, I will go to your school. You're only allowed to apply to early decision at one school. So, so you can apply like regular decision or rolling or something, early action at other schools, but you're making a commitment that after you get accepted to that school, you will withdraw all of your other applications. The reason why you want to be careful about applying early action, or I'm sorry, early decision, is that it is binding. So, you're not getting a chance to look at the financial aid package before you are like committing to go to the school. So for families who want to have a financial safety option, it's not something that I usually recommend doing. If you're in a situation where they really don't offer you nearly as much financial aid as your expected family contribution is, you can back out for financial reasons. But I wouldn't even put yourself through all of that if you feel like you want to have financial safety options and you want to be able to compare financial aid packages between different schools. So I think for the average family, they might be applying to early action, regular decision, or rolling. But the advantage of early decision when it is binding is that it can increase your likelihood of getting into college, because less people are applying in that way. So they have a certain amount of slots for their early decision students. And yeah, so it for some schools, it may give you an advantage to apply early decision. Like you may be more likely to get an early decision than early action or regular decision. So does anyone have any questions about that? Because I feel like I just said a lot.
It's always a tricky one. So if you have individual questions, everybody will be different during this process. I will say there's pressure on kids when they hear friends are applying, or it'll feel like seniors, it'll feel like everybody's applying early. That it's definitely, there are more and more kids who apply early. It's across America, but it is not everybody by any stretch. And early action gives you some flexibility. Early decision, it's still few and far between, but that's a personal decision that, like Michelle said. So don't feel pressure that you have to do it. It is completely an individual decision with you, your family, and consulting with whoever you trust during this process.
Yeah, I definitely would not recommend rushing to get out an early action application. I think it's much more important to have a very polished application go out than rush something along to make an early action deadline. All right, so now I'm going to talk about financial aid a little bit. So you may remember in your junior meeting us talking about financial safety schools and the Fafsa, and in our junior meeting that we had together, a big group meeting. So the Fafsa is the form that all families fill out. It opens October 1st. And you are required to fill out that form if you want to be eligible for any federal financial aid. So one thing that you can do now is you can create an Fsa Id. This is something that both the parent and the student need. And this is your FSA ID for life. So if you'll go to college for 4 years, some people it takes them like up to 6 years to get their bachelor's degree. If you end up getting your master's degree, you will use this FSA ID to sign your FAFSA year after year after year. So both a parent and a student, if you want to get started today, you can go ahead and create your FSA ID username and password, and make sure you have that information written down in a place where you can access it. And then there's the FAFSA itself. Be sure that you're on the right page. So it's like fafsa.ed.gov. You should always see gov at the end, and make sure you're not on a scam site. So again, the FAFSA opens October 1st. It's especially important if you are applying to early action or early decision. Some of those colleges are going to want the financial aid forms done at the same time as the application deadline. So this is what the Fafsa homepage looks like. You click on I am a student and you go ahead and get started. This is something that I definitely recommend that a parent and a student do together. And please contact your individual counselor if you're in a situation where you feel uncomfortable filling out this form, and we can figure out a way, to get you the help that you need, because it's important that, it's really not a very hard form to fill out, but, if this isn't your thing, please let us know. And then there's another form that many private colleges, especially in our area, require, and that's called the Css Profile. And it is, they give out their institutional aid using the information that they gather from this form. So this is another form that you'll have to fill out. For this form, if a family is, not together, a parent 1 and a parent 2 are in 2 different houses, they would each fill out a form for a student, and those 2 forms would be linked together and would go out to all of the different colleges that require the Css Profile. So that is that. You can find out through Naviance which forms a student college requires. But I really recommend, once you have your list of 8 to 10 colleges you're applying to, go to the financial aid websites or the financial aid website on that individual college webpage and read through that carefully. So this is BU, yep, BU. So on their webpage, they have tuition and aid. And then they're just going to tell you, you're an incoming freshman student. This is everything that you need to know about financial aid and how to apply. And see, they make it really easy application steps. Number 2, FAFSA. Number 3, Css Profile. So that's that. There's also a very helpful tool. So in the state of Massachusetts, we have the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, so Mifa for short. And Mifa is, they do student loans, but they also are our go-to in Massachusetts for getting help with financial aid. So they have many wonderful webinars, and also so webinars you can attend, and also taped webinars that they've done in the past. From this homepage, what I would recommend you do is scroll down. So once you're on the home page, Erica, if you want to just scroll down, I think scroll down a little bit farther still. There's a place where you can join our community. So if you go ahead and put in your email address and hit submit, you can give them information about yourself. So you can say, your name, and you can say that you're a parent, or student. And you can say that, yeah, you're a high school senior. And then you can hit submit, and they are going to send you relevant information to your situation. So like, you know, it's October of your senior year, they're going to remind you to fill out your FAFSA, and they're going to link you to a webinar that will show you how to fill out your FAFSA. Yeah, so there's so many resources. So then if you go back to the home page, Erica, and then go to make a plan high school. And then if you scroll down, so Mifa college financing webinars. So you can attend a live Mifa college financing webinar. And there's almost one every day, I think. And there's understanding the FAFSA. There is, what else? College financing. So this is one that I would highly recommend that people go to. The Css Profile one is another one that I would highly recommend people go to, because that one's a little bit more complicated. Filling out the Css Profile is definitely more complicated than filling out the FAFSA. So yeah, so you can attend these live, and then you can also attend pre-recorded ones, so you can watch them, you know, whenever it's convenient for you. So again, this is a great resource. It's going to give you all of the information that you need, so you can feel confident when you're going through this financial aid process. Does anyone have any questions about this?
So traditionally, we offer a Mifa night that is usually in October, and that's why we're showing you all these webinars. Our contact at Mifa, who's wonderful to us and loves coming to the Vineyard, sends her regrets, but they are not doing any in-person seminars. So the same information that you would have gotten sitting in our pack, you will get in the comfort of your own home now, and you can kick back and watch the presentation at home. But truly, I would recommend this. Like Michelle said, it gives you, they are wonderful. And you saw, you could have started planning when your kid was an infant with Mifa. So I signed John Frank up with Mifa a couple years ago, and they will hopefully help me pay for college. So they have a lot of tools at their disposal, but they also will just help you fill out the forms, which is one of the more nerve-wracking things for parents to go through during this process.
Okay, I'm going to talk about.
I see a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Anya.
Sorry to be repetitive on that. One quick one about the different times when people can apply. This wasn't so much about the finances, but you did mention about early decision being binding, but it can sometimes help you get in. Is there anything that you would say around early action? Does that communicate something to colleges in terms of likelihood or not compared to?
Yeah, I think it depends on the college. That's a great question. I think, you know, a lot of people are applying early action, so I don't think it necessarily gives you an advantage. I think the big advantage of applying is that you find out earlier, but in terms of like giving you you know, an advantage within the application pool, I would say that that is not true, or is not a thing. Some students are flat out rejected if they apply early action, and some are deferred into the regular admissions pool. So you can either be rejected, you can be accepted, or they'll put you in with the regular decision students. So they'll delay the decision.
Yes, I would echo that, and I would say exactly what Michelle said. So many kids are applying early action to multiple schools. The colleges understand that. A lot of kids who are applying to Middlebury and want to go to Middlebury are applying to all the NESCAT schools, and they understand that if the early action's out there. But like Michelle said, the biggest advantage is you will have an indicator of how competitive your son or daughter is during the process, because you'll get some answers before Christmas in a lot of cases, and then you can, if things don't go well during that part of the process, you can revamp your list for January and February with regular dates. But a lot of our kids get deferred through the first part of this process. Deferred is not bad. A lot of kids who get deferred eventually get in. And deferred is the biggest thing. They want to see what your grades are. They want to see how you do. And that's the information that you're going to be sharing. They will wait for your semester grades if they defer you or in the early part of the process. So your senior year grades are important, are hugely important. And I was going to end with this in my little part of the presentation, but I may as well jump in now and say that one of the biggest things that COVID did, and what colleges will say, since SATs aren't as big a part of the process, is that your grades are a bigger part. And not just the grades, the rigor of what you're taking, especially senior year. So it's up to each kid. It doesn't mean you can't have an open campus or a study hall. That they don't care about that, but they don't want to see, if you're applying to a competitive school, clearly most of your seniors have gotten this. You need to take math, you need to take science this year, you need to take the highest level of that class and do well in it. And it's not a deal breaker if you get a B+ instead of an A-. They just want to see the rigor of your schedule as well. So your first quarter grades are very important. Most of the schools will not make a decision if you apply early action or early decision until we send your first quarter grades. And if you get deferred, then they are looking at your first semester grades, because that's the end of January. We will send them out at the beginning of February. And if you apply in the regular pool, they will want your first semester grades. So senior year does matter, believe it or not.
And parents, you should, please log in and see what your kids are taking. We just went through a schedule change process, and they could have dropped a class that you thought they were taking. So please check up on that. We do always ask, are you sure? Have you talked to your parents about this? And they tell us, oh yeah, they're totally on board with me dropping down from AP to honors or whatever it is, but we just want to make sure that you're aware of that. So please make sure you check their schedules now that they've had a chance to change things around.
And on the other end, if you're taking 5 APs for the sake of taking 5 APs, that is not going to move your GPA. The GPA is not what they're going to be necessarily looking at. The rigor would be wonderful, but take those APs because you want to take those APs and you're going to do well in those classes. Don't try to manipulate the system. They understand that people are trying to load up. They want to see a diverse group of APs. They want to see a diverse group of academic and elective offerings, even during these times. So Erica?
Okay, is everybody still with us? We're almost done, I promise. All right, I'm going to quickly touch on letters of recommendation. I know we talked a lot about this in the spring too, and some of you may already have asked some teachers if they would kindly write you a letter of recommendation. If you haven't done that yet, just be thinking about who you would like to ask, and I would do that sooner than later, especially if you are planning to apply early action. Then you need to let your teachers know. You need to give them some time. You cannot wait and only give them a week. They definitely have a lot on their plate, and the same for us. We'll talk about how to get a letter from your counselor as well. But we write upwards of 50 letters. Teachers can write 20 to 30 letters, and this is usually done on our own time. So please be kind and give us a few weeks notice. So plan ahead, be thinking about that now. How many letters of rec should you ask for? That's a great question. We get that all the time. You should never need more than 2 teacher recommendations and a counselor recommendation. Colleges will not typically read more than 3 letters. You may only need 1 teacher, 1 counselor, or you may not need a counselor letter at all, and you'd like to represent, multiple subjects, and you'd like to have 3 teachers or 2 teachers, and that's all you need. So if you're not sure, please go to the college websites and look under admissions and see what they require and how many letters of recommendation they need, and if they have any suggestions for who you should be asking. But you should always have at least 1 academic teacher, because that's the representation of your academic career. You can have an outside letter of recommendation. We get asked this a lot. What about a coach or a boss or something like that? That's great. It's nice to have that. And if people are willing to do that for you, sometimes they ask, say, I'd like to write you a letter. You should always say, thank you so much, and be very gracious. But you don't necessarily need that. But if you would like to have an additional letter, that's fine. Just make sure that you're still representing your academics in there and that you have a teacher letter as well. I need to stress this. This is so important, to please not invite any recommenders through the Common App. We do that through Naviance. So if you're in the Common App and it says, who would you like to invite your teachers or your counselor, do not do it through the Common App. Check no. Ask your teachers if they will write a letter, and if they say yes, then you need to let Cindy know, or one of your counselors, let your counselors know, and we will add them through Naviance. So they get linked to your Naviance account, and when they write your letter of recommendation, they will submit it directly to Naviance, and then we submit that to the colleges. So please say it with me, I will not invite a recommender through the Common App. The only time that you would do that is if you were using an outside recommender, let's say it was your dance teacher or a coach, and you would like to have them create a Common App account, then we can walk you through that and talk to you about how that looks. So they would have to be willing to do that and set up an account. But if they're not real tech savvy and they just want to hand you a letter, that's fine. Then you can just mail that to the college, and we can help you, explain how to do that as well. If you have not completed your resume yet, then you need to do that. Resume is an essential part of, not only do you need that information to fill out your Common App, but you also will need to give a resume to anyone that's writing a letter for you, because they need to know what to say. So teachers will ask, have you done a resume? Or they may have their own set of questions that they would like you to fill out in order to get a letter. And it's not a huge ask for the amount of time that goes into writing a great letter for you. The more information that you give to somebody, the better letter you're going to get. So please put in the time. We as counselors we have a form that we will send to you, and it will walk you through the steps that we need in order to get a letter of recommendation from us. It's a little bit different than a teacher, because we really can be all encompassing. We can talk about more personal things. We can talk about sort of an overview. We are also able to touch on, certain academics. Let's say you have, a math teacher and a history teacher, but you really want to incorporate, information about your awesome science project. Well, let us know. We can put that in the letter so that we can capture anything that maybe wasn't captured in your other letters. So it is a little bit more of a dynamic letter. Therefore, we definitely need information from you. So the more you give us, the better the letter will be. Resumes should be done in Naviance. You know where that is. We showed you a million times, but it's under the About Me, My Stuff, and the resume is in there. If you have done a resume and it's not in Naviance, that's okay, as long as you have one completed, and then you can share it through a Google Doc or whatever. But if you haven't done it yet, you may as well do it in Naviance, because your teachers can then access the resume through Naviance if they're linked. So you can say, oh, I'm all set, my resume is in Naviance, you can find my information there. Okay, any questions on letters of rec?
And can I just reiterate as the questions might come in? So this is Naviance, and this is literally, you're gonna ask 2 academic teachers like Erica Mulvey just said, but you're not gonna do it through the Common App, and you can't do it on Naviance yourself. You have to ask the teachers for permission. I'd be honored if you write me a recommendation. If they say yes, which most of them will say yes, you are then gonna let your counselors know, and this is where I would put it. So this is my account on Naviance, but I'm the class of 2021, and if Chris Bear is gonna write me a recommendation, I tell my counselor, and the counselor is the only person that can put this request in, and then it'll go to Chris Bear. So that's the only, and then Chris Bear has to do it on Naviance. He's not going to hand you a letter of recommendation. So this makes perfect sense. When in doubt, email your counselor and just say, here are my 2 teachers. And to reiterate what Ms. Mulvey said, there is not a college out there that will accept 3 academic teacher recommendations. So there is no reason for any student in the senior class to ask 3 academic teachers for a recommendation. If you do so and they find out, they will not be happy because, and I'm not trying to threaten anybody, it is very frustrating for a teacher because some families will sit there, and this is human nature, I understand it, and say, I'm going to pick the best recommendation out of the 3, the best 2. We do not do that. If you do not have confidence in the teacher that they're going to write an appropriate recommendation, do not ask them. Because it is not fair to the teacher who's going to spend a few hours on your recommendation to then not use their recommendation because you think somebody else is going to write a better one. 2 academic teachers at the most. When Cindy goes to send your recommendations, she cannot send 3 to any school. In fact, some schools will not take 2, and then we will ask you, which one would you rather send? They are private. The only way for you to read them is if you ask for permission from the teacher. There are a couple teachers in this school who will not give you permission to read their letter of recommendation. And that is old school. For the parents on here, you remember the way we used to do it. You used to get a hard copy, and they used to sign the envelope on the seal because you were not allowed to see it. So there are some teachers in this building who we respect completely. If you do not believe, if you ask them and they say they're not going to let you read it, and you will feel uncomfortable about that, do not ask them. They legally do not have to show you the letter of recommendation. I'm just stressing that. Please be respectful of the teachers in this one and the counselor's time in this process. I can't stress that enough. So.
And please ask politely. A nice email will do. Would you be so kind? You know, like Mr. Fiorito said, ask somebody who you've done well in their class, right? Not a teacher that you drove up the wall.
Yes.
And then, of course,
write a letter of thank you. Write a little card afterwards.
Yes, a thank you would be great. If you've asked a teacher already and it's been a while, a nice way to do a check-in just to make sure that they've remembered to do it. You can certainly check back in with them and say, you know, as you get closer to knowing when your first deadline is, you can give them a little reminder and say, hey, you know, Dr. Munn, my first deadline is, first of all, say thank you so much for being willing to write me a letter. I just want to let you know my first deadline is December 1st. And that's like a nice way to do a gentle reminder without pestering them, right? So, and yes, the thank yous are very important as well. Okay, last
Miss Mulvey.
question, yes.
So Miss Mulvey, I just wanted to add in that oftentimes what it is the 2 teachers and a counselor rec, but for the counselor rec, it's kind of like the way it's worded in the Common App is a counselor or school administrator. And so I just want to say here that, you know, us as your guidance counselors are more than happy to write your recommendation letters. But if you have a good connection with Amy, or if you have a good connection with Matt, or you've worked with Miss Dinkeldye on a project or 2, or if you've worked with Mr. Lay on a project or 2, there are different people in this building that can be that counselor / school administrator recommendation. So think about, you know, is it Miss Lynch that's the one to write mine, or is it, you know, Mr. Light, or, you know, who is it? So I just wanted to add that.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you. That's great. Yeah. Whoever knows you the best, who you have a connection with, is going to write a great letter about you. All right. Any other questions on that? Okay. Last but not least, senior checklist. So we are going to email this out to you tomorrow. We just wanted to debut it first. This is going to be the checklist that you will use and rely on heavily over the next couple of months. I cannot tell you how many questions that I get that were already answered on the checklist. So please be so kind as to read through this and follow along. It really goes in order, right? So what should you be worrying about first? The SATs, the recommendations, finalizing your list of colleges, and then the waiver, jumping into the application, the essay, right? And then as we get further along, this is important to know, if you are taking the SAT, then those scores go directly from you and your College Board account to the colleges. We do not have access to send those scores for you. So that is done through the College Board account. and then it finishes up with financial aid information. So it really does go in order. We will send this out. It is posted on our website. It's just a great reference. Once we have our senior meeting, we will pull out the checklist and check off and see how much you've accomplished. And then you'll know exactly what else you still need to do in order to get through this process. So we think it's pretty thorough. There's a lot on there. We've squeezed a lot into it. There's like no margins left. It goes all the way to the bottom. So we will send this out to you all and use that. And then we look forward to meeting with you during your senior meetings, where we will dive in and log into your Common App account and all that good stuff to make sure you're set to go. Any questions on the checklist? Okay, we're almost done. Mr. Fiorito, do you want to wrap us up?
We did have one question.
Oh, okay.
Ebony, go ahead.
Me again.
Hi, Ebony.
Hi. It's not about the checklist, but
That's okay.
John was saying that you should have a separate password for colleges. The students should. So if they already have set up Naviance with a specific password, can they then change it? I mean, email. Can they then change it once they set up a new email?
So not with Naviance necessarily, and Naviance is more, so for the people who went through this and the kids logged in, Naviance has made it very easy. They've given us the ability to marry the Google, through the Gmail suite, the kids' accounts, so they don't need to save passwords anymore in Naviance because it's just part of their apps. I learned all this technology last year. So they log into Naviance without even remembering how they logged in as a freshman. Really, I did mention, Ebony, Naviance. Really, I kind of misspoke on that. The email is more for the Common App, your financial aid stuff, any communication you're going to have with colleges or teachers. You don't have to worry about Naviance with Cindy necessarily. That's all linked together. So everything you do on Naviance, we can see. So if any kid goes in tonight and adds a college to the colleges they're going to apply to list, literally Cindy will see that tomorrow morning, and that doesn't necessarily involve email. Okay. It's more, I was going to actually show, and I don't necessarily have to get into it right this second, but as Sean was talking, I went right to the Common App website, and the first thing the Common App website asks for when you're logging in is you Google Common App and you click on there and you create an account. And this is what every kid should probably do if they haven't done it already. Every student, let's get started. I'm a student. It's your email address. That's your username for a Common App. So not only is it your username for Common App, that's how everybody's going to get in touch with you. That's how you're going to marry your accounts to Naviance moving forward with the FERPA and all this other stuff. But really, SATs, College Board, all that stuff, kids get inundated with emails through this college process, and that's really more where it's coming from. Don't worry about Naviance necessarily as much.
A lot of kids will use their school email address, and that's fine, but as long as they're really good about checking it. So it's really a personal preference. If you want to create an email address that's specific for this stuff, if that makes it easier for you, then that's great. But you can use any email address as long as you are consistently checking that email. Yeah. So
okay. I think I got confused when you guys were saying the two wouldn't match up if they didn't have the same email.
No, and really the way to match is you can use any email you want for Common App, but whatever you settle on, that's the email address that you plug into Naviance, and that's how they talk to each other. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think there was it was misspoken earlier, but yeah, if whatever email you do end up choosing for Common App, you just plug that one into Naviance where they asked for the email, and that's how they link up.
So can I just say for Naviance, the single sign-on is with your school email. So you guys, the students, can just log in through their G Suite with just single sign-on, but it's the school email that's actually attached to that.
So literally, I'm set up as a student. This is my MVRHS account, which every student has. So parents can't go in this way. So you should hack into your kid's email if you want, your school email. You go to this app thing, which I never even knew existed until last year, before last year. and we added the Naviance logo on there. And literally when I click on there, and any student here, when they click on, it just brings them to their email, and miraculously and amazingly into Naviance somehow. I don't know how they do it. I don't ask questions, but there it is. So
Okay, thank you.
yeah, every student can kind of do it that way. It's taken, it's saved us a lot of questions on what's my email, we have to reset it. You never have to reset Naviance ever again.
Okay, thank you.
So in conclusion, on our ends, we have spent a lot of time updating our websites. We're putting what I hope, all our major letters that we're sending out. So if you feel like you missed something from Jessica that she sends out, not every updates, we're not going to put that, but the big ones, our big letters that we've sent out. So there's important dates there. This is information for you guys, class of 2021. That's who we're mostly focused on. Except for me, who works with the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. They're going to take a back seat for the next couple of months. News, some of these articles have been helpful starting back in the pandemic on how this has impacted the college search process and college admissions. There's some interesting articles on there. There's a list of SAT optional colleges and universities that it seems to be continually updated. And I thought that was kind of interesting. We have a lot of stuff over here, like Erica referred to the senior checklist. That is right here. You can just go right to the senior checklist. If you lose it in translation here, or in any of the emails that we send out, a lot of the stuff is just going to be on our websites. There, I gave you a sneak preview. If you want to go back and compare our performance to last year, you can do that and click on the 2019 one. We have an alternative post-secondary meeting Wednesday. So there might be some kids on here who are thinking about gap years or thinking about taking some time off, not just because of the pandemic, just because that might be a logical choice for you and your family. We have a lot of information on this link right here. Some of it involves community colleges. A lot of it involves just really interesting programs that are out there, and there's more. So we're going to talk about that Wednesday. If you want to come back for more of this at 6:30, there'll be a Zoom link available to you guys for that. And some of the stuff for Naviance that we talked about is on here, and their transcript requests. If you officially want a transcript, that's more for this time next year. If you're transferring or if you want to go, we will work with you until you're God knows how old and we're retired. So if you want to email us, or you want to get your college says you're transferring to says you need a transcript, you can click on that link from wherever you are this time next year, and I hope it's an amazing place. One thing I did want to add, please disregard the pictures. I'm sorry here, but since you just all stared at us for an hour and a half, why I'm showing you our pictures, we want to be available to the kids on this Zoom call, to all seniors. So we are going to have a way for every senior here, and it's going to be just for seniors, for Michelle, Erica, and Sean for the next 2 months. It's not that juniors and sophomores can't meet with them, but really this link is just for them. So I have experimented with this for the kids on here. You know that on the teacher landing pages, you can set up a office hour meeting with your teachers. You can do the same thing with us. We are going to be available every lunch block. We are going to set aside 2 lunch blocks every day, half-hour meetings for seniors. Parents, you're more than welcome to join, but this is really for seniors. The seniors literally will click on, and these are my appointments that are available for you to set up for the next, and this is the next week. You can go all the way through the end of October. We're going to set up appointments. So that's going to be under all of our pictures, Michelle, Erica, and Sean. You can just log in and set up an appointment. They're also going to have office hours for another block during the day. We know that won't work for every senior. So they will have 3 to 4 appointments available every day for seniors. That will hit their caseload within a couple weeks. So please take advantage of that. If you run into any problems, you can email, but that seems to be pretty effective. As a senior, teachers have shown, just a show of hands from the seniors, do you guys know how to do that with your teachers right now? Has any senior done that or knows how to do that with their teachers? If not, the kids, the teachers are walking them. So your math teacher will be there, your English teacher. For us, we would love to meet with you in person. We have set it aside during lunch blocks. So for the people who can drive here, we would love, it's the first appointment will start 20 minutes after your period ends, your previous period. That will give you time to get here. It will also give you time to get home. You're also more than welcome to hang out in the tent if it's a nice day and Zoom into your classes here. But we would love to meet with you in person. So if that works for you, that's great. Otherwise, there will be a Zoom link on there that you can just Zoom in with us during that appointment time. So hopefully that works for everybody. Any questions about that? Great. Any last questions? Anybody want to jump in? You can unmute yourself. You can yell something. You can heckle anything you'd like at us. All good? Good luck with the whole process. We will help you through it, I promise. There will be moments where it will be nerve-wracking. We understand that. And again, that has nothing to do with COVID. COVID will add to it, I'm sure. But please, we can get you through this. And if you have any questions, you can email us. You can call Cindy anytime. Jessica, when the scholarships get rolled out in the winter, please, we want to work with you during this time. So if I can help as the director of guidance, if you feel like you just want to ask me a question because you know Erica, Sean, and Michelle are tied up with something, I'd be happy to answer any questions. So please, we want to work with you. We're excited about the process, truly.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice to see you guys.
Awesome.
Good to see
Take
you.
care.
Good
Yeah.
night.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks. Get out.